welcome back to our channel. I'm Carol. I am a designer and illustrator here at Farm Design. And today I want to share with you my 5-step process on how I emulate any illustration style for our projects. So why add illustrations? Brands benefit from illustrations because they express a lot of personality. Illustrations leave just enough room for interpretation to let your audience participate in the storytelling. They make the brand more indelible and more recognizable across different platforms. And they're a lot of fun to create. So I have my own style for my personal projects, but it's really beneficial, especially when you're working in a small studio, that you have a wider range and you're able to adapt or emulate other illustration styles. You'll be able to expand your portfolio as well as become an asset to the team as you're able to solve the problem of not getting stuck in one specific style. So for this video, I would like to demonstrate my 5-step process on an illustration we created for the Bivouac Ciderworks packaging. If you guys didn't know, Bivouac is a cider company down in San Diego who embraces the outdoor lifestyle. And our task was to capture that spirit. And in this video, I'll show you just that. I'll show you how I emulate other illustration styles. The first step is to audit your inspiration. Auditing your inspiration means taking notes on what you see. It means breaking down your inspiration into these fundamental elements and principles. Illustration styles can be broken down into 7 elements and 7 principles. And I'll list them on the screen so that we can go through them briefly. So ask yourself questions like, how are the lines being utilized? How are the colors related to each other? Is it more realistic or abstract? When I audit my inspiration, I personally like to write down my observations so that I can keep them in front of me as I work. Here are the illustration styles that inspired the Bivouac packaging. As you can see, I really like how the strokes taper because it softens the illustration. It's not as stiff. And I really like how the lines are being utilized to communicate value, the highlights and the shadows, as well as to convey texture and contour. For this one, I really like the limited analogous color palette. It shows vibrance and contrast, but not too much. I suggest starting with 2 or 3 references. They don't have to be by the same artist, but starting with 2 or 3 references allows you to pull nuances from each of those references so that you can evolve the illustration into something more unique. So step 2 is to learn from life. Step 2 is all about pulling subject references that are relevant to your concept. As you know, Bivouac is all about embracing the outdoor adventure. So our concept was to tell just that on their 6-pack box. What I did was I pulled references of creeks, of mountainsides, bears, really any element that will help tell that story. Don't try to guess what a bear by the creek looks like. Just Google it and then save a few images. We're gonna use those to Frankenstein later. Step 3, sketch your thumbnails. Keep these sketches rough, but it's really important to ideate. Now the first few sketches or thumbnail sketches are usually the obvious solutions. So you want to get those down on paper. But then, try to be a bit more daring. Dig different holes to find more unique solutions. With this step, what you want to do is again keep in mind the story that you want to tell. If you're working on more than one illustration, keep in mind that the compositional elements need to be balanced throughout. So for example, Bivouac has 3 flavor varietals. So I made sure, as I was sketching, that the compositions were still organic, but maintained the same visual weight. Now step 4, make quick Frankensteins. Have your artboard set up to the same size as your touch point, and make quick Frankensteins. Frankensteins are essentially really rough compositions based on your sketches. These will help you see your limitations as well as assess your balance points. Be sure to include any placeholder labels and other elements that need to go on the packaging. These Frankensteins, they don't need to be perfect at all, just enough to communicate your idea. These albeit quick explorations really do a lot of the heavy lifting so that I can put a majority of my efforts into developing the illustration. So now we're on to the fun part. Step 5, illustrating. This is the meat of the process. So grab your tools and let's illustrate. You can go about starting the illustration many different ways. What I like to do is I like to establish a color palette and start with big blocks of color. Starting with blocks of color allows me to establish the general forms, and it also gives me a better sense of depth. This way I can see which areas need more contrast and how the composition balances throughout. So once I've established light and shadow, or essentially my general forms, I'll move into the details, the line work. And for this illustration, I customized my brush to behave in the same way as the inspiration. And because we did our inspiration audit earlier, I'll find opportunities to bring in those elements into what I'm working on. And only after I've finished the line work is when I'll add the texture to really bring the whole illustration together. And that's it! This is my 5-step process on how I emulate any illustration style. Today I showed you the illustration we made for Bivouac packaging, but you can honestly do this for any illustration style. Just to recap, step 1 is to audit 2 or 3 references. Step 2 is to pull subject references that are relevant to your concept. Step 3 is to sketch your thumbnails and seek unique solutions. Step 4 is to make quick Frankensteins. And of course, step 5 is to illustrate and emulate that chosen style. I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for helping our channel grow. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this content, subscribe if you want to join our tribe, and remember, life is always better when you do good work.